Welcome back. Seeking to combat gun violence in the wake of the Newtown mass shooting, President Obama not only couldn't get new gun legislation passed, he's also having trouble with some of his more modest proposals. Colleen McCain Nelson is in Washington and has this report. Colleen, good morning.
Good morning.
Tell us about some of the other initiatives that the president has been working on that have run into roadblocks.
Right. Well, when President Obama rolled out his proposals to combat gun violence, most of the attention was on the legislation that he was seeking. But at the same time, he signed 23 executive actions, and all aimed at combating gun violence. And a lot of them are procedural, and some of them are kind of nebulous. But the more consequential of them require Congress to act. And it's not clear that Obama is going to be able to get Congress to do what he wants to do on some of the items, like confirming an ATF director. The ATF hasn't had a confirmed director since 2006. President Obama's nominated someone now, but the Senate Judiciary Committee hasn't even set a hearing. So it's not clear that Obama's going to be able to get even some of the more modest proposals that he was hoping to do kind of away from Congress.
Speaking of modest proposals, you mentioned one in your story that the president has proposed a $10 million budget appropriation, $10 million, not a lot of money, to study the causes and prevention of gun violence, and that is something that the NRA opposes vociferously, apparently.
Right. Well, they've opposed it in the past, and this is probably the most notable of the executive actions, because for about 20 years, the NRA has basically managed to stop research on gun violence. And they argue that when the CDC, when the Centers for Disease Control collected data about gun violence, they were aiming to use it to impose gun control. And so now Obama's wanting to resume research into gun violence. And the question is whether the NRA is going to continue to oppose that. At this point, the NRA is saying they haven't taken a position on this. They're waiting to see what the CDC wants to study, and they want the CDC to study the benefits of guns, not just the costs of guns.
That's really?
I'm sorry?
I'm just saying, really? They want the CDC to study the benefits of guns? That strikes me as odd.
Right. They say that the CDC in the past has studied what can go wrong when people have guns, and they say that there should be studies about how guns protect people and how people who have guns are able to kind of fight off criminals, and they want studies about how criminals in jail might say that they're less likely to burglarize a house if they know that there's a gun there. And so they say that there's research that you can do that shows that there are benefits to having guns and not just dangers.
Okay, last, I want to update us really on the status of Manchin and Toomey, on the legislation that just failed, but I understand it might be coming back in a different form?
Right. They're still holding out some hope that they can bring legislation back, and Manchin is working on kind of retooling a background check bill. The Senate failed to pass it the first time, so he's hoping to make some tweaks that will satisfy some of the folks who were on the fence. And then meanwhile, a few other senators are working on another bill that would go after gun trafficking. So there's still some motion in the Senate, still some hope that they might be able to come back around to legislation, but it's certainly not a sure thing.
Okay. Colleen McCain Nelson in Washington, thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.